me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. You could take a look in a book, that's fine. Or you could sit back, relax, and unwind and read me romance. Read me romance.
Welcome back, lady listeners.
Hey, lady listeners, welcome back to a new week at Read Me Romance. And we have a brand new book from It's Dakota Rebel. And something interesting I found out when talking to Dakota Rebel is that she writes male, and but she also writes male, and to differentiate between the two, so you know right away which one it is, she puts only her last name on the male book, so it just says Rebel on the cover. So if you see this one for Out of Left Field and it just says Rebel on it, that's why, because it's her male series. So, or her male, like, I guess category.
Yeah.
And so her male ones are all under Dakota Rebel, but I'll just call her Dakota so you guys know who I'm talking about today. So I thought that was a pretty cool way to like, just kind of separate the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like we do with our AR taboos. So people know right away, like, oh, this is the same person, but a different subgenre, so to speak. But I wanted to talk about a few things before we get into Dakota Rebels week. One of the things is that, I don't know if I mentioned it last week or not, but I have kittens again. So I just want to know, like, universe, if you're listening, I appreciate this, and I love kittens so much, but I can't keep getting my heart broken. Like this, like it breaks my heart when I see them, because now I'm like, I know I can't keep them.
Yeah.
So I'm immediately like, oh God, this is gonna hurt. Like that's what I think when I see them, because I'm like,
yeah.
But I kept hearing something in my office when I was sitting here. I was like, it sounds like a bird is dying. And I actually went outside and I pulled up the camera so that I could see if like they were left by someone or their mama did it or whatever. And on the video, I walk outside and I go, like,
That's
I'm like a child. I go, and like my hands go up in the air. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. But
God.
it was a boy and a girl. It was an orange boy and a girl. I guess she's like a calico or like a tabby cat that's gray and white and a little bit orange. But she is like long haired. I guess long hair is recessive in cats. So she, for some reason, got the long hair gene, and she is poofy. She's like a giant cotton ball, and he is just a little scrawny boy that is just as orange and ginger as he can be. And they are so freaking cute. But they were on our side porch under the couch, and they had been left, and it had poured rain the night before. So I thought maybe like either their mom carried them up there, because I don't think there's a way they could have gotten up there on their own. Yeah. So she either put them up there and ran off and something happened to her, or I don't know. But either way, they're on our side porch. And so I ended up getting like our dog's giant kennel, like Blueberry's. Blueberry's like 90 something pounds. So this kennel's huge. But I put it out on the side porch so they have like a bed area and like where they can play. And then they have a litter box in there too with their food and everything. And it's just, they have their whole little house set up out there. And I gave them a bath, and I've been feeding them, and we've been playing with them and stuff, and they're so sweet. But we live on a really busy road, and yeah. So like I can't stand the thought of like I would love to have an outside cat, especially because I found 2 snakes in my yard day before yesterday. So I would love to have an outside cat for that. But
that's why my mom loves her cat. That's
yes.
She's like, the cat watches for snakes better than the dogs. Anybody, she's like, you're out there with the boxes with me, and that cat sees everything immediately.
Yep, like I would like mouse, like mice, anything like that, any kind of rodents. I'm like, yes, I grew up with outside cats. So I really appreciated that they were hunters, when we bring us snakes and dead, squirrels and stuff on the front porch. I appreciated that. So I'm not opposed to it, but the front of our house is a really busy road because it's right downtown. And we have we have a really big backyard behind us, but it's like, we can't control where they go, if they're an outside cat. So as much as I would love to keep them, I can't. So I don't know.
Have you
Like
had any luck finding anybody?
no. And that's the thing is like I've like posted on Facebook, I've shared it, and I'm like, if anybody's near here, they're free to a good home, you know, and like not one person, not one single person has been like, I think I might want them. Not even a hint of interest. And I know like when I've called the shelter and they're not taking cats right now. I guess it's that time of year where there's just tons of kittens everywhere. So they're full. And one of the ladies there was like, well, you know, we do have some foster families, but that's really only for the new, like the bottle fed cats. She said, you can keep calling back. And she said, sometimes they'll make room. And I was like, that means they're going to euthanize an old cat to make room for the kittens. And I was like, I don't feel good about that. So
Yeah.
it's just it's a shitty situation. And it makes me so fucking mad that people don't spay their and neuter their pets.
Well,
I feel like Bob Barker.
We don't have any shelters here, but our vets will neuter here in town for $35.
Yeah, they are.
You bring them any male cat or whatever, female cat, they'll fix and neuter them. But you got to take them back.
Yeah,
you can bring them, but they don't house like we don't have a shelter out here for nothing. But they'll fix them.
Yeah, we have a mobile pet place that does that. Well, they'll do it like it's like once a quarter or something. They'll go up there. It's like in the Walmart parking lot or something like that, and you can go up there and take your pets and stuff. And like they'll do the same thing. It's super cheap. It's like $35, something like that. They'll do it. But
I heard if you go downtown into the city, they'll do it for free. But you got to get like on a wait list or whatever.
Yeah. Like I was coming home, you know, we had Girl Scouts the other night and we were coming back and there was this house and it's like 3 streets behind us. I go by and I stopped my car and I was like, I said, y'all look at that right there. They had 6 cats in front of their house. And then directly ahead of us were 2 houses side by side. There were 3 cats in each of their yards. I said, this is why kittens keep showing up on our damn porch. I said, all these fucking cats running around. I said, I bet you none of them are fixed. Yeah. It just makes me so mad that people just aren't responsible for their pets like this. And it's like, they just don't understand, like, what these little babies, you know, what am I going to do with them? Like, just let them grow up in a cage on my porch because people don't neuter their pets.
Yeah, I wonder if somebody in your town knows about them. Because, like, I live in a small town, not as small as yours, but I feel like yours is kind of a homey feel at times. We would have a bunch out by, like, the wine bar, and when people would come down and catch them and just take them to get them fixed and bring them back and drop them off.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I'm going to have to do. But, you know, I reported it to Kevin. That's what I did. I came home. I said, I would like to file a report with the city of Albemarle. He's like, fuck. And he was like, you know, he said, they have ordinance on it, but he's like, you know, when they're running around outside, it's hard to prove whose cat's whose, you know,
because some people just feed them.
Yeah. And they're like, well, there's just an ordinance on how many you can keep and blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they're all fixed, but it just makes me so mad when I go by and I see that shit. And I'm like, I really doubt that they're all fixed. Yeah. And it just, I don't know. This is Bob Barker saying, please help control the animal population, spay and neuter pets. So I know I'm sorry to be harping on that, but it just like, they're so sweet and they deserve a good home. And they're just, especially like the boy is just so shy and nervous. But once you hold him for a minute, he purrs so loud. And the little girl is just, she'll sleep in your arms right away. She's just so trusting. I know, I'm going to cry. Ugh.
I never get cats. People are stealing cats around here.
I will drive them to your house. You want me to? You want to meet halfway? Do you need 2 more cats, Mel?
I do not.
Don't
Rob said there was one on the back porch last week. He's like, I think that orange one is back.
You're like, I have a new cat.
I tried to feed it. If it's the same orange one, I tried to feed it. And he's like, well, somebody's been feeding it. It's okay.
You're like, who?
He's like, it was fat.
Was it?
It was like fluffy Rob.
Oh, I know. That's like the girl, we named him Chili and Pepper. So Chili is the boy and Pepper is the girl. And Pepper looks like she's twice as big as him. And I was like, maybe they're not from the same litter. And then I gave him a bath and she was like the same exact size. And I was like, oh, she's just fluffy.
Fluffy.
She's just got big fluffy hair. I was like, can relate. So yeah, but that's been my adventure since last week. So
maybe there's a Reddit group online for your cats in your town.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a Reddit for everything.
I'm in Reddit cat. I'm in the Maine Coon ones, and I always people probably don't like me in the groups because people come on, they're like, "Is my cat a Maine Coon?" And I'm like, I look at him like, "That's not," but I'm like, "Yes." And then I get so excited, and then somebody's like, "That's not a Maine Coon." I'm like, "Shut up, leave people alone."
Let them think it is.
Like, who cares? They get so excited when you're like, "Yes, that definitely is."
Oh my god! You're like, not every cat with hair in its ears is a Maine Coon. I know it's precious though. Anyways, the other book world drama, well, not that the kittens are book world drama, but book world drama I saw the past week or so has been Readers Take Denver. And, that's not a signing I've ever been to, but wild enough, I actually have a half-sister that lives out in Portland, Oregon. And she messaged me and she's like, "Hey, I'm at Readers Take Denver this weekend." I was like, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, it's the first book signing she'd ever been to, but she read Fourth Wing and really liked it and wanted to go to meet Rebecca Yarros. She wanted to get her book signed." And I was like, "Awesome, good for you." She's not into a lot of, I fear she might be into a lot of dirty romance now that she went to this book convention because she met a lot of people that did it. But she really wasn't into trashy romance before that. So she kind of just liked paranormal fantasy, like that sort of thing. But she never, I don't think she had read like Ruby Dixon, for example. So, but anyway, she went to it and she was telling me about it while she was there, like while she was texting me from it. And I was asking her, just like, how's it going, blah, blah, blah.
I think the weather's bad. The lights just went out.
I know, right? Well, and what's crazy is like, this was her first book signing, so she didn't have anything to compare it to. She had no idea that like a line for 3 hours and then not getting in is not normal. That you wait in line for 3 hours to get into an event and then you don't get in. Like that was just, oh, well, I just didn't get in. I was like, what?
Yeah. Watching it, I felt like, or watching from the side and seeing like random, well, I didn't see TikToks. People had to tell me about the TikToks. Yeah. I'm not on Book Talk and I stay away from it on purpose because I don't want that all to be in my feed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a lot of drama.
Is it a lot of drama? Well, I just know when I go on like Facebook and stuff, that's all book stuff. So over here, I'm like, I want like lesbians and Taylor Swift.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And so people had to kind of tell me about it, and I seen a few things, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, I feel like this would happen to me if I put on a signing. I'd be like, yes, more people just putting on tickets. Just keep selling tickets.
Just keep
why do people cut off ticket sales?
Yeah, that makes no sense to me. Everybody should get to come. I could see you thinking that too. You're like, oh, you want to come in? Yeah, you can come in. And the fire marshal's like, we're full. We're full, Melissa. And she's like, I've got 2 more. Got 2 more coming your way, guys.
It reminds me of that scene in Clueless when she has to do the report at the front of the room. And she's like, I think she's talking about like immigration. She's like, I just don't understand. Like when I have a party and people don't RSVP, I just move some tables around and make room. It's not that big of a deal. Why can't we do the same for immigration? That's what I was thinking of during this book signing was that Clueless thing where these people were just like, yes, we're going to make room for everybody.
I know. And I love that. Like these people pay. Well, I don't love this. It's horrible. But like people paid all this money for food and the only food there was cupcakes. And I was like, yeah, that would be Melissa's signing too. Where she's like, welcome to our banquet. And it's just cake.
I was talking to my friend about it. I was like, no, this is the correct diet because everybody's on Ozempic.
Yeah.
You need food.
You need sugar. Yeah. You need the sugar to like get you going.
That's all you need. Everybody just needs a little cupcake and we keep going.
Yep. The cupcake and caffeine. That's it. You're good. Grab a Coke. You're fine.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But like, it's just, the more I've heard about it, the worse it gets.
Oh no, it sounds terrible.
I know, and so I know we're laughing about it, but like
you can laugh out later. But if I was there, I would have been like pissed.
I know, and the thing is like you and I have done plenty of signings in the past, and some have been fantastic. They have been phenomenal, gone off without a hitch, and some of them it's just like we got to get the fuck out of here. And I have never been to a signing that big that was so mismanaged. Yeah. It's like and the ones that we've had that have been a little bit more chaotic or not as well managed, or like, okay, we're gonna sign and go home, like, and we're not gonna do the after parties or anything. The ones we've done that, they have been on a smaller scale. I can't imagine one like RT, like that size, just being an utter shit show. And that's what this was. I mean, there was 4,000 tickets sold. Is that what it was? I mean, I was like, that's fucking crazy.
Which makes me wonder, why wasn't there food? You had all this money for tickets.
Right? I'm like, that's what everybody said. Where did the money go?
You could have just got a food truck.
I don't know. And I got to think, like, everybody's putting a lot of blame on Lisa Renee Jones. And I don't know that she's without blame. I'm not saying that. But I can't believe she was the only person in charge of this event.
Really? I didn't even put that together. But I will say this. Lisa Renee Jones is a very old school author. It's been around a long time. And I have a feeling it was just her name on it.
You think? Yeah.
And she may have wanted to put it on, but I bet you she subcontracted this out to groups.
Yeah, that's what I kind of think. Like, I don't know.
People she met on Facebook. Yeah. Assistants. I have a feeling there's something like that going on.
Yeah. I would be shocked to know that she handled all of it. Like, I would be completely shocked that she was the only one making decisions on this. Like I said, I'm not saying she's without fault at all. I just would like to know if this was, it was set up as a nonprofit, this like signing or not a nonprofit or whatever it was.
Her needing supposed to be a charity, money dash grab thing or whatever. Yeah. She doesn't need to do that for a book signing. So
you would think whoever really wrong. Yeah, like whoever was putting it on was there to make money, So I just wonder to what degree was her involvement in this, and if that, in whatever that degree was, who else was involved in this if it wasn't all her, So that would be my question, because I haven't been able to find that information. So who knows? But it just makes me, it makes me wary of, going to signings that aren't already established, that don't have kind of a good reputation. They have Book Bonanza that's coming in June. And that one, one of the big complaints last year was, the amount of people that were there, the amount of tickets that were sold, that, I think somebody even did the math on, I think it was Rebecca Yaros maybe that did the math on the Denver signing that said, even if you, because a signing was like 3 hours or something. And she was like, if you wanted to see every author, you would only get to spend it was like 30 seconds with each author or something like that, or like a minute with each author if you wanted to see every author in that time frame. She was
waiting in their line.
Exactly. And that's what she said. She was like, it would have been impossible to see, even half of the authors in there because there wasn't a lot of signing time. And that was the other thing with Book Bonanza was like, people like, they have 2 days worth of signings or whatever. And it was like, but they reduced the number of Book Bonanza by like half. I think there's only like 2,000 people coming this year. I think they reduced the number of tickets, and this is the last year they're doing it too. So, I mean, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's a ton of work.
And it starts to come to, and it sucks because ticket price goes up. Sometimes it starts to become about, you have to lower how many you have, and it just has to raise the ticket price to keep the profit margin or whatever you need to put it on the same.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's like you have to put it at a price where it's like you can actually make it manageable for the amount of people that you have. Because, if you're having 4,000 people at a lower price of a ticket and you can't manage that crowd, then that's a lot of people that you're opening yourself up to problems with, that many people. But, maybe raising the ticket prices or just allowing that was one thing I always really liked about Indies Invade Philly, is that the ticket
the
prices.
whole time we've been thinking about that, about this, I've been thinking about how great the indie girls are.
Yeah, the Indies Invade Philly, 1,000 out of 10 recommend, because they always have a cap on their attendees. The prices,
and they know how to work their lines and everything.
Yeah, and I think the price reflects what it is. I never felt like the price for the ticket, even when I went as a reader, I never felt like it was outlandish. So, but go into it like they have set hours, you have plenty of time, like the lines go well, it's never crowded. Like, it is definitely more of like your boutique signing, as far as like the clientele that go, because it's not as many people. And so it just feels like you're more of a VIP when you go to that. So it feels that way anyways. But, yeah, so that one's a really good one. I always really liked how they ran that. And then, but for whatever reason, nobody does the big, huge signings anymore, or like there's not the big book conventions like that much anymore because of problems like this. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of backlash even from the book bonanza last year with a lot, people had complaints and stuff. And it was like all I heard about for weeks after book bonanza was some of the problems. And then this happens. But
I would be leery to put my name on anything.
Yeah. But you know what? It actually, like, as crazy as it is, it makes me want to host a signing, because I'm like, it's not hard. You just have to you have to plan it, and you have to give yourself a lot of time, and you have to be able to give people options. Like, it's not, I don't think it's a difficult thing to do, but I feel like you've almost got to have like investors though, like somebody else's money that's putting into it, but it's being planned by an author, you know what I mean? Or by a group of authors, but you've got to have an investor that puts their money up on it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're an author, you're just going to keep putting money into it, and I don't know that you'll ever get it back.
But, I concur.
Yeah. But anyways, I mean, that was some of the stuff that came out of Readers Take Denver. So I'd be curious, lady listeners, if you went, what was your experience? Because my sister that texted me, she had a great time. She loved it. She wants to go to another book signing, so she didn't have any complaints about it. But so yeah, I'd be really curious what the overall experience was. But I did see it was canceled for next year already. So.
I seen that today. That's what made me think. But I always think that some of my best time at a book signing is before and after the signing, and hanging out with people in the lobby and the other readers and stuff, and just like chilling.
There's a book blogger I follow. Her name's Alexandra. She said that at Book Bonanza last year, she was like, I beg of you, if you are putting on a book signing, I beg of you. She was like, do not do an after party. She was like, save your money and put that money in the bar at the restaurant. She was like, just make a tab. She was like, all the money you would spend on food, DJ, like the ballroom, all of that. She was like, save that money and put it at the bar and just open a tab. Because she was like, that's where everybody ends up anyways. And it's the most fun.
It is.
To just sit around and hang out in the lobby.
Yep.
And I was like, she's fucking right.
That's you literally go down and just sit down in the lobby, and somebody's gonna sit down next to you, and you'll just start talking.
Yes, it was so fun. Those were some of our best memories, like just sitting down and talking.
And it's because you guys have such a hobbyish kind of thing to talk about. It doesn't matter who sat down next to you. You'll start talking about who you were there to see, and then you'll start talking about the books you love, and then it just bleeds into all kinds of other shit.
Yes, it was always so much fun, especially after signings, to like sit down in the lobby with the books you got, and then you see people talking and stuff, and somebody's like, "Oh, I got that book. Which one did you get, or whatever?" Just they see what you got, and then just start talking. That was always so fun. But I miss that part about it, like the signings and stuff, like sitting around and talking to people and everything after. That was always a good time. So yeah, I don't know, but maybe we'll do some soon. Who knows? I know I'm going to Book Bonanza in June, so If anybody else is going to be there, come say hey. You want to go, Mel? You want to come down to Book Bonanza?
Where is it?
It's in Grapevine, Texas.
Oh.
You know, Celia's going to be there. I actually saw her. Like, I had to download the app the other day because I'm helping Ruby Dixon. So I had the Book Bonanza people sent their thing out. And I looked on the app and it said attending authors. And I click on it. And she's the first one that pops up because it goes in alphabetical order. So it has Celia's name like first on the thing. I was like, that's pretty cool. So yeah.
I don't even know.
Yep.
I don't talk about signings that much.
Yeah. Well, it's like right down the road from her, I think.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
Yeah, it's near like I guess near Dallas, I think. Yeah, because I think you fly into Dallas, Fort Worth. I think it's there. Yeah. But
I can't remember. That's why I've been there a handful of times. I'm like, I don't remember. I go to Houston or Dallas or something when I go to see her.
I know, right? It's like I don't even know which airport I'm flying into. I need to look at that.
God.
All right. Anyways, let's talk about Dakota Rebel. She, like I said, she's brought us the book today. It's called Out of Left Field, and it's a male romance. Dakota Rebel is an internationally best-selling author providing spicy HEAs to romance readers since 2008. She believes that love is love and it happens in a flash, whether it starts with action and adventure or in adrenaline or with just a glance across a crowded room. Happily ever after is never far away. You'll never find her far from a cup of coffee that's going cold and she's distracted with shiny objects in her line of sight or just in her own head. Out of left field this week, when I got hit in the face with a foul ball at my first ever baseball game, I never expected that I would fall head over heels for the man who fired the shot. Brodie Jackson is just about the sexiest man I'd ever seen in my life. Unfortunately, he's not as open about his orientation as I am. So even though we're dating, we have to hide it from the world. That works fine for a while, but how long can you really hide the fact that you've fallen in love? That sounds so cute. I love it. Dakota said something similar to Out of Left Field would be her male sports romance. It was a college bully romance called Love Hate. And you can check that out. It sounds really good too. Dakota offers 2 free books with her newsletter sign up. So go to Dakota, Dakota, Rebel, REBEL.net. And you can sign up and get those 2 books for free. And she's also got a Facebook reader group that is Dakota Street Team. You can check that out. We'll put all the links down in the show notes. Dakota Rebel has over 100 published titles that male as well as male-female. All of her books are separated by 2 types on her website, and her male romance covers features only her last name, so you can easily identify the genre at a glance, which I love. So I think that's awesome. I love all her stuff, and I'm really excited about this one. We haven't had a male in a while, so I always love getting some of these. So,
let's send them in.
Let's do it.
We'll see you guys on the other side.
Bye.
This is Out of Left Field by Dakota Rebel. Read for you by Wesley Paul. 1. Gabriel Williams. Is this a date? Well, I'm straight and your cousin, so I'm going to say no. Court rolled his eyes. How hard up are you? You're the first man I've gone out with in 6 months, I admitted. And it's been longer since I've been in private with one. So we won't be going back to your place after. Hey, you could do worse. I popped a piece of popcorn into my mouth, then looked out over the baseball field. Not sure I could, though. Gee, thanks. When you asked if I wanted to spend the day with you, I reminded him, not bothering to keep the irritation out of my tone, I thought we'd do something fun. This is fun. This is sports. I don't know shit about baseball. You don't have to, he insisted. We'll drink beer, soak in some sun, and hang out. Could have done that at a flea market, I shook my head. I mean, thank you. You're welcome. What color are we rooting for? I asked. White with blue stripes? Court replied. You really don't know the name of the home team? Nope. I shoved a handful of popcorn into my mouth, then talked around it. Don't know, don't care. I can't imagine why you've been unable to get a date with your charming manners. Hey, I don't put food in my mouth on dates. I don't want to hear about you putting anything in your mouth. He made a fake gagging noise. Fair enough, I shrugged. You have anything in your mouth lately? No. Court looked back out at the game. Maybe dating has been tough for all preferences. Everyone seems to be on apps, and I don't want to do that. I could see his point. While I certainly had those dating sites on my phone, I mostly perused and never actually swiped. When I was younger, it had seemed easier. Go to a bar, meet a guy, hang out, rinse and repeat. No one needed to know the balance of my 401k before they'd agree to have dinner. I jumped as the crowd around us started cheering, and Court sprang to his feet, clapping wildly. I tried to focus on the game for a minute, but I was lost. Guys with sticks hitting a ball and running in a circle. It was strange what accounted for entertainment to some people. What's happening? I asked as the men on the field started changing positions. Our team, the Cougars, were at bat, Court explained. Now the Bears will bat, and the Cougars will try to stop them from scoring. Do you know how scoring works? Yeah, I've been aware of the bases since I was 14, thanks. I looked around the field again, my gaze finally landing on something interesting. Who is that? Which one? Court tried to follow where I was pointing. The one in the baseball pants, I hissed. Gabe, they're all wearing baseball pants. Right. First base, I think? That's Brodie Jackson, Court answered. He's shit at that position, but he can hit like no one I've ever seen. He looks great at that position, I argued. Why have I never watched baseball before? No idea, Court laughed. But I assume you just became a Cougar fan. Something like that. The game dragged on. According to my cousin, they did announce what innings they were in, and out in the backfield was a sign with numbers lighting up, but I couldn't have cared less. I just liked it when the hot guy was on base so I could check out his ass. Here comes Brodie, Court said, knocking his shoulder against mine. We're tied, in case you weren't paying attention. If he hits a home run, we'll win. Oh, so the game's almost over, I asked, sitting forward to watch this Brodie Jackson person swing his stick. Yes, Court sighed, clearly put out by my disinterest. Don't worry, I won't drag you to another game. Don't be silly, I argued. I'm having a great time. Heads up, someone yelled from behind us. There was a loud crunch, and then everything went dark. 2. Brodie Jackson. Since the moment I discovered my foul ball had hit a guy in the stands, my stomach had been in knots. Not exactly how I wanted to make a highlight reel, and I knew it was going to be all over the networks. I pulled into the hospital parking lot and realized I had no idea where I was going. All I had was the man's name written on a scrap of paper. I walked inside and approached the information desk. The lady working obviously recognized me because she jumped to her feet and beamed at me. Nice to meet you, I said politely. Could you please tell me where I could find Gabriel Williams? She clicked on her keyboard, then directed me to the 4th floor. When I got into the elevator, I looked down and realized I hadn't even changed out of my uniform. Wow, I was really shaken up about this. The doors opened and I walked down the hallway until I reached Gabriel's room. I knocked and stuck my head inside. Whoa, a man said as he met me at the door. Brodie Jackson, nice to meet you. Thanks, I said, shaking his hand. I just wanted to check on Gabriel. Come in, I'm Court, he said, Gabe's cousin. How is he? I looked down at the man in the bed and fought a grimace. His head was completely bandaged, and there was bruising over half his face. He's okay, Court insisted. Honestly, nothing broken, just a concussion. But I'll probably never get him to another game. Damn right, Gabriel murmured softly. Hey, Court rushed to his cousin's side. How are you feeling? High as a kite, Gabriel answered. How do I look? Like you took a ball to the face, Court admitted. Wouldn't be the first time, probably won't be the last. I barked out a laugh, shocked at how casually and earnestly Gabriel had said that. Hey, Gabe said. It's baseball pants. Yeah, I said. I didn't have a chance to change after the game. I wanted to check on you, see how you were feeling. I feel fantastic, Gabe said. How do you feel? I'm fine, I promised him. Thank you for asking. Did you come to sign my balls? Gabe's brow furrowed for a moment, then he laughed. The ball. They let me keep it. I'm sure they did, I agreed. I can, but I'm not sure that's a souvenir you want to keep. It was my first baseball game, Gabe said. Oh, I'm so sorry, I said. Is there anything I can do to make this up to you? A drink? Gabe asked. I don't think alcohol is a good idea, I told him. I meant when I get out of here, have a drink with me. Oh, that really wasn't a good idea. Sure, I answered, though I'd meant to say no. I'd really had no plans on accepting. A drink with Gabe sounded way too much like a date, and I didn't date guys. Not publicly, anyway. But I'd accepted, and there was no way to graciously back out. Besides, I kind of wanted to see him again. Though I couldn't figure out why. Sure, he was handsome, even swollen and bruised, I could tell he was attractive, but so what? Maybe it was that he didn't know sports and probably had no idea who I was before I'd beamed him in the head. Or maybe it was just because I wanted to get a drink with someone. Whatever the reason, I scribbled my number down and handed it to Gabe. Give me a call when you get out, I said. I hope you feel better soon. I turned and shook hands with Court. Nice to meet you. You too, Court said. See you around, I guess. Yeah, I guess he would. 3. Gabe. I still wasn't clear on how I'd managed to score a date. I didn't even remember Brodie Jackson coming to see me. Court had assured me, though, that I had asked him out and the professional sports star had said yes. Damn. I wish I could remember it. I'd been so hyped up on pain pills, not to mention a stellar concussion, to remember much of anything. But there I was, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, sitting in a bar, waiting for Brodie Jackson to show up. Hey, Brodie said, sliding into the chair next to me. You look much better than the last time I saw you. Thanks, I smiled at him. Good God, he was handsome. I mean, I'd Googled him, but I couldn't remember seeing him in person and hadn't expected quite that much hotness. Sorry I'm late, Brodie said, motioning to the bartender for a beer. Traffic over here sucks. Yeah, I agreed. I only live a few blocks away, so I walked. It can get crazy during rush hour. That's cool, Brodie said. It's a nice neighborhood. I don't get to this side of town much. Upper East Sider? I teased. How did you know? Brodie's brow furrowed. Probably the multi-million-dollar contract, I said with a laugh. Where the hell else would you live? Fair enough, he chuckled before taking a swig from his bottle. How are you really? Does it still hurt? Nah, I shook my head. I mean, I picked this place because it's dark and half of my face is still green and yellow, but I feel great. Haven't even had a headache in days. Well, I'm glad, Brodie said, knocking my knee with his as he turned back toward the bar. Thanks for inviting me out. I don't really get to hang out much during baseball season. I would imagine not, I agreed. You guys play, 8 hours a day? Not quite. He looked over at me and grinned. I get it. You're not a fan. I'm just saying that if I wanted balls flying at my face, I could find softer ones. You sure do have a lot of ball jokes, he said with a smirk. Do I? I raised an eyebrow. Did I make any good ones at the hospital? I told you on the phone that I don't remember. I think you asked me to sign yours, but in your defense, you were really stoned. Before I could respond to that embarrassing fact, a man walked up to us, stepping between us and facing Brodie. Brodie Jackson? Dude, you were amazing today. He grabbed Brodie's hand and pumped it quickly. You're going to take us all the way this year. I'm going to try, Brodie agreed, pulling away. Have a good night. You too. The man clapped Brodie on the shoulder before walking away again. Did you play today? I asked, hoping he wouldn't be offended that I didn't know. Yeah, Brodie said, grinning. And we won. Good for you. Did you hit anyone else with your balls? Okay, that's going to get old Pretty quick, Brodie insisted. No, I kept my balls infield. Nice to feel special, I assured him. Mr. Jackson, a woman said as she too stepped between me and Brodie. Could I get your autograph? Sure, he said, his tone only slightly annoyed. What's your name? Candy? With an I? The girl giggled and I tried not to make a retching noise. Brodie grabbed a napkin, then pulled a marker out of his pocket and scribbled before handing the paper to the woman, who sauntered off again. Don't you get tired of that? It comes with the gig, he answered. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Do you want to get out of here? I asked, hoping I wasn't being too forward with him. We could go have a drink at my place. It's not as dirty, but also not as full of people. Actually, I should get going. He pulled out his wallet and dropped a couple 20s on the bar. It was nice to actually meet you, Gabriel. You can just call me Gabe, I insisted. And I can get the beers. I invited you out. He waved a hand dismissively, then slid off his stool, turning to me and flashing me a dazzling smile. Well, Gabe, it was fun. Maybe I'll see you around sometime. Yeah, I nodded, hoping I didn't look as completely confused as I felt. Good luck with your baseball. Thanks. He clapped me on the shoulder and walked out, leaving me totally perplexed. Obviously, I'd read the situation completely wrong. That was not a date. That was barely two guys getting a drink. As I finished my beer, I thought back to what I'd seen in my brief online detective work. While there wasn't any mention of him being with women, there was definitely no mention of him actually being gay. For fuck's sake, I hissed to myself before draining my beer. I'd asked out a straight guy and convinced my own damn self that it had been a date. Then I'd scared him off by making him think I was inviting him to my place for sex, which I wasn't. But when I replayed the words in my head, it had certainly sounded that way. 4. Brodie. I sat in my car like a stalker, watching for Gabe to leave the bar. The moment I'd walked out, I'd known it had been a mistake to leave, but I'd panicked. No one was supposed to know that I'm gay. Yeah, it sucked to have to hide a part of myself, but it would have sucked worse to lose a contract with the Cougars if they couldn't handle something that wasn't anyone's business but my own. My parents knew, my agent knew, the few men I'd actually dated in the past obviously knew, and so did a select few of my teammates. But that was it. I had a career to think about, a career that I'd always put ahead of my own happiness. I'd always told myself that when my first contract was up, I'd be able to be myself, that the sports world wouldn't walk away from me just because I fell in love with a man. But they'd thrown more money at me than I ever dreamed possible, and the thought of giving that up scared me too much to risk it. I watched Gabe step outside and start walking up the sidewalk. He'd mentioned that he only lived a couple blocks away, so I hoped he was headed home. I hopped out of my car and fell into step behind him, keeping distance between us. I kept my gaze trained on the back of his head, trying not to lose sight of him through the crowd. He walked up the stairs of a townhouse and disappeared inside. I approached the intercom and saw his name listed above one of the buttons, so I buzzed and waited. Yeah? Hey, I said nervously. It's Brodie. I was just wondering if your offer was still good. God, I sounded like an idiot. But the lock opened, and when I stepped into the hallway, a door on the left swung in, revealing Gabe's smiling face. Stalker much? He teased, motioning for me to enter. Yeah, I said sheepishly. I just wanted to apologize for running out like that. I get it, he assured me. Beer? That would be great. I followed him to the kitchen, leaning against the island as he slid a beer over to me before he settled onto a stool with his own. In full light, I could see the bruising that still littered his handsome face. Sorry again, I said, motioning toward the bruises. Does it hurt? Nah, he grinned. Plus, it makes me look tough. Really, I should thank you. It was no trouble, I assured him with a chuckle. I'm just glad you're okay. I glanced around the apartment, taking in the muted tones and sparse furnishings. There was nothing on the walls, He had a beige sofa facing a television that was sitting on a plain black stand. No dining room table, which led me to assume he ate at the island. "So," Gabe said, "how far in the closet are you?" Last year's Prada," I offered. "Oof," he shook his head. "That's rough." "It's not ideal," I agreed. "Is the sports world really still that backward?" he asked. "I mean, things are getting better for us all the time." "Yeah," I agreed. "They are in a lot of places. Not so much where I live, though." Gabe dropped his gaze to the bottle in his hands, rolling it with his fingers as his posture stiffened. I worried that I'd said something wrong, and opened my mouth to apologize, but he spoke first. "Yeah, that happens where a lot of people live," he said softly. "I actually do understand." Most gay men did, but I didn't need to point that out. Everyone had their own coming-out stories, and most of them weren't fairy tales. The best most of us could hope for was to keep at least a few of the people we loved close to us and do our best to deal with the loss of the rest. "I have to ask, what made you follow me?" Gabe asked. "You took off so quick from the bar, I assumed I'd never see you again." "Yeah." I set my bottle down, staring at him across the island. "I don't really go out with guys. And when people started coming up to us, I was afraid they were going to get the wrong idea." I shook my head. "The right idea, I guess." "So that was a date?" "I wanted it to be," I admitted. "I just didn't want anyone else to know." "I can work with that." Gabe smiled at me as he reached across the counter and covered my hands with his. "We can work this however you need to, but I'd really like to see you again." "I'd like that too." I felt my entire body relax instantly. I knew it wasn't fair to ask him to go out again, but to hide the truth of what was happening. But I wasn't about to turn him down. "Great." He walked past me into the kitchen, returning with a stack of menus. "Let's have dinner. I'm starving." 5. Gabe. "Okay, tell me everything about baseball." We were sitting on my living room floor, an empty pizza box and beer bottles littered around us. The disaster at the bar notwithstanding, it had been a fairly successful first date, and I didn't want it to end. "What do you already know?" he asked. "It's a sport, and you play it," I offered. "Okay," Brodie chuckled. "I'm going to assume you also know things like bases, pitcher, catcher." "Yeah, I've spent time under the bleachers," I said with a smirk. "I'm also intimately familiar with foul balls." "I really am sorry about that," he said, leaning forward to brush his thumb across my bruised cheekbone. "I was so scared when I heard what happened." "But if it hadn't, we wouldn't have met." I reached up and covered his hand with mine, leaning into it. "So no worries, okay?" We sat like that for a moment, our gazes locked, his skin so soft and warm against my face. I started to lean toward him, but he pulled back, removing his hand and getting to his feet. "I should really get going," he said, bending down to pick up a few empty bottles and carrying them to the kitchen. "We can do baseball lessons another time, okay?" I stood up too and grabbed the pizza box, following him. I worried for a moment that I'd pressed him too hard. He already said he didn't date, so it might have been too forward to go in for a kiss already. But we'd been having such a great time, and he was so hot and nice and close that it felt natural to try. I just hoped it hadn't ruined my chances at a second date. "It's not that I don't want to kiss you," he said suddenly, turning around to face me. "Because I do. I really, really do. It's just, I don't know if it's a good idea right now." "Kissing me is always a good idea," I told him. "I have it on high authority that you wouldn't regret it." "Oh?" He smiled. "Whose authority is that?" "Well, mine," I shrugged. "But I'm very smart." Maybe that ball to the head knocked something loose. We were slowly moving toward each other, and I could only hope he wouldn't pull away again. "Maybe," I whispered. "You did get me pretty good." Brodie's hand came up, cupping my cheek as he held my gaze. I stood as still as possible, knowing that he was going to have to make the move if he wanted to. His other arm reached out and snagged me around the waist, pulling me hard against his muscled chest as his face lowered and he captured my lips. My fingers dug into his hair, holding him steady as our mouths opened, our tongues sliding against each other. He growled low in his chest, the sound rumbling against my skin as he clung tighter to me, deepening the kiss further. I wanted to climb him like a set of monkey bars and wrap my limbs around him, cling to him, maybe never let him go. But we did eventually break apart, each taking a step back before our gazes met again. "I can't stay," he whispered, his hand twitching as if he were going to reach out for me again. "I don't remember inviting you to," I teased, though I damn well did want him to. "Can I see you again?" "Definitely," he promised. "I'll call you." "You'd better," I agreed. I stepped into him again and kissed him softly. "Thanks for stalking me." "Any time." He grinned so hard that an adorable dimple appeared on his left cheek, and it about made my knees go weak. He stepped around me and headed for the door, pausing to look back at me with his hand on the knob. "I'm sorry I hit you with a baseball," he said, "but I'm really glad I met you." "Same." I waved before he turned and walked out, closing the door behind himself. The moment I was alone, I sank onto a stool and blew out a heavy sigh. Damn, that had been one hell of a kiss. I rolled my tongue over my lower lip, licking away the last taste of Brodie's mouth. I really hoped he didn't wait too long to call. 6. Brodie. 3 days after our first date, I couldn't get Gabe out of my head. I was distracted and played like shit, helping the team lose 2 straight road games. I couldn't even explain what it was about this man that got under my skin. We just met, and yet he was all I could think about. Maybe I'd just been too lonely for too long. The first thing I did when I got home was call him. "Hey," he answered, a smile clear in his voice. "Hey yourself, what are you up to?" "Not a thing," he admitted. "What about you?" "Just got home from a couple of road games." "Did you win?" he asked. The fact that he didn't instantly start following the team actually meant a lot to me. I'd never dated anyone who wasn't at least a little into baseball before, so his complete disinterest was refreshing. "No," I chuckled. "We lost both pretty spectacularly." "That sucks," he said. "Did you hit any other cute boys with foul balls?" "Nah, I'd have had to get a hit for that to happen," I sighed. "Are you free tomorrow?" "Let me check my calendar," he said. Then he laughed. "Yeah, I'm available. What did you have in mind?" "Do you like boats?" "I like drinking on boats," he said. "Works for me. I'll pick you up at 10 tomorrow morning." "Sounds good," he agreed. We disconnected and I felt tension ease in my shoulders. I don't know what I'd been nervous about. We obviously liked each other. It's not like I'd thought he wouldn't want to go out. But maybe he'd missed the fact that I was planning a date as far from other people as possible. I'd explained my situation to him and he seemed to understand, but most men only tolerated my need to hide our relationship for so long before they couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't help wondering what would happen when I finally found someone that was more important to me than my career and my public image. Would I know instantly? Would I ever be able to give myself completely to someone? There was no point worrying about any of that now. For the moment, I had a date with a cute boy who didn't mind my issues. Worrying about the future wasn't going to help me. "Is this yours?" Gabe asked, climbing onto the deck and looking around. "It is," I agreed, reaching out to take his backpack. "You want the tour?" He followed me below deck to the cabin, which included a kitchenette, a bathroom, sitting area, and bedroom. The Splinter wasn't exactly a yacht, but she was still pretty impressive. I bought her with my first check, and I spent as much time out on the ocean with her as I could. "This is beautiful," Gabe said as we climbed back up to the main deck. "How rich are you?" I laughed, recognizing that he was teasing me. Hell, if he was fishing, all he had to do was look me up on Google. My net worth was impressive, and available to anyone with an internet connection. Ready to shove off? I asked, turning the engine and putting the boat in gear to pull out of the marina. Ahoy, Captain, he said. Gabe settled in next to me, his gaze trained on the horizon as we headed out. He kept a respectful distance, and I was both disappointed and appreciative. The marina wasn't busy, but there were enough people around that I'd have been uncomfortable with any affectionate touches. When we reached open waters, I cranked the throttle and we sped off toward nowhere in particular. Just Gabe and me in the open sea. You want to drive? There were no other boats for miles around us, so even if he'd never driven in his life, there was no danger of him hurting anything. Hell yeah, he agreed, moving closer and taking the wheel as I slid out of his way. His fingers curled around the wheel, and I stepped in behind him, pressing my chest to his back and sliding my hands down his arms to cover his. He leaned back into me, resting his head on my shoulder and exposing the length of his throat. I growled, my cock twitching against his ass as I leaned down and licked my tongue over his smooth skin. Our fingers tightened around each other, and Gabe rolled his hips, rubbing friction against my shaft. I pulled one of my hands free of his to reach out and kill the engine, before turning him around and crushing my body against his, our lips meeting in a deep kiss. Did you bring me out here to seduce me? He whispered, dragging kisses down my cheek before biting my jaw gently between his teeth. Not exactly, I admitted, but I'm finding it difficult to keep my hands off you. Lucky me, he purred, his palms skimming up my chest, tugging my shirt with it. I raised my arms and let him discard the teeth and grabbing his face in my hands and pulling him back to my mouth. He hissed, his head jerking a little, and I realized I'd pressed pretty hard into the bruise that was still healing on his face. Sorry, I whispered, moving that hand to cup the back of his head, my fingers threading into his thick hair before I pulled him closer again, my tongue trailing over his lips. It's all good, he promised before pulling back and raking his gaze over me. Your body is ridiculous. Thank you? It's a compliment. Gabe started to lower himself down, his lips trailing down my chest and abs until he knelt before me, his fingers curling into the waistband of my swim trunks. He raised an eyebrow, silently asking permission to continue. As if I were going to turn him down? He pulled my shorts off and I stepped out of them, standing completely naked in front of him, the sun beating on my skin. Just watch your balls, Gabe teased, his fingers curling around my erection and slowly jerking up and down. I couldn't finish telling him how not funny it was because his warm, wet mouth closed around my tip and the words were lost in a loud groan of pleasure. My fingers slid into his hair as I stared down, watching my shaft disappear between his lips, his saliva glistening in the sun on my erection every time he pulled back. It took every bit of control I had to keep from thrusting forward and driving my cock down his throat. It had been so long since I'd been touched intimately at all. My resolve was nearing zero, and I was desperate to explode in his mouth. Gabe pulled off my dick and glanced up at me, a smirk on his red, swollen lips. Just let go, he whispered. We've got all day. His hand gripped my shaft, squeezing gently before he swallowed me again, driving himself down my length until my tip hit the back of his throat, his muscles convulsing around me before he eased off again. My balls were so tight against my body they almost ached, and when he slid forward again, I held him there with my fingers gripped against the back of his head. He gagged a little, but didn't struggle to pull away, and I finally let go, my orgasm racing through me as my cock jerked and spasmed in his mouth while he swallowed my release. I released him quickly, and he pulled off my softening shaft slowly, dragging his tongue along the underside as he moved, before swiping the tip quickly but firmly, then leaning back to sit on his heels, grinning up at me. "You didn't have to do that," I said, my voice hoarse. "I wanted to," he assured me, getting to his feet and reaching down to adjust his own obvious erection in his shorts. "You want me to—" "I'm good," he said, waving away my offer. "Like I said, we have all day." He walked over to the side of the boat, staring out at the water as I pulled my shorts back on and tossed my shirt below deck. I walked up to him and wrapped my arms around his waist, resting my chin on his shoulder as I followed his gaze out at the ocean. A terrifying thought occurred to me then. I could really get used to this. 7. Gabe. "Do you ever see sharks out here?" I asked, trailing my fingers lightly over Brodie's arms where they wrapped around my waist. "Sometimes," he said, "and whales and dolphins. But we need to go a lot further out if you wanted to look for some of the bigger wildlife." He pressed a kiss to the side of my neck. "You can if you want." "Whatever you want," I insisted. "I'm just along for the ride." It would be cool to see a shark, but mostly I just wanted to spend the day with the handsome baseball player. When he'd invited me out, I knew exactly what it was. He wanted to spend time with me, but he didn't want to risk anyone seeing us together. And I was fine with that. I wanted to see him, and if this was what I could get, then I'd live with it. My erection was finally subsiding, and I settled into the ache. When he'd offered to reciprocate, I declined because I liked the tease. But it was honestly too early to tell a guy that I'd get off on the withholding. If we ended up going for something long-term, he'd either figure it out, or we'd have the conversation at that time. "You think it's too early for a beer?" "It's never too early," I assured him. "Bring me one?" He walked below deck and returned a little while later with a cooler, which he set up on the deck between two lounge chairs. Brodie popped open 2 cans of beer and handed me one, which I accepted as I settled into one of the chairs. He lay down on the other, and we drank in silence for a while, soaking up the sun and enjoying the soft lapping of water against the side of the boat. I could really get used to this. "Yeah," he agreed. "I always tell myself that when I retire from baseball, I'm going to get on this boat and never look back." "Like a sexy pirate?" I teased. "Well, without the pillaging and scurvy," he said with a laugh. "But I'd look pretty damn good in the hat." I rolled my head to the side and studied him. "Yeah, you would." I narrowed my gaze. "I don't know about the beard, though." "No?" He scrubbed his hand over his face. "Well, if we manage to scrape our way into the playoffs this year, I guess we'll find out." "You don't shave in the playoffs?" "It's bad luck," he insisted. "You wear the same socks and grow out your facial hair. You have a really weird job." "Speaking of jobs," he countered, "what do you do?" "Male model," I answered with a shrug. "You really ruined my schedule with this." I motioned toward my face. "Shut up," he said, his eyes widening in surprise. "Really?" "No," I grinned at him, "but thanks for thinking I could be. Actually, I'm a financial analyst. Nothing exciting." "How did you get into that?" "I misunderstood what the word analyst meant. I thought I'd be getting paid for something much more fun." "You've got a lot of jokes, don't you?" "I like to think so," I agreed. "The job is fine. I get to work from home, and while I may not be able to afford a yacht, I have a pretty impressive 401k. "Just fine?" he asked. "You don't love your job?" "We don't all get to play games for a living, Mr. Jackson," I teased him. "I love margaritas. I love Pacific Islander poetry. I love baseball pants. A job is just a job for most of us." He leaned back, his gaze trained on his beer can, which he was rolling across his thigh with his hand. "I love my job," he said softly after a few minutes. "But I don't like who I've become to keep it." "What are you afraid of?" I asked, sitting up and turning to face him. "I mean, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but it might help." "I don't even know anymore," he admitted. I'm too damn good at my job for them to dump me. And legally, they couldn't anyway, not for being gay. Of course, if management actually had a problem with it, they could invent a million reasons to cut me. Do you think that's likely? My agent does, he said. I honestly didn't think it would be this difficult. Most guys don't have to talk about their dating life. No one cares. I don't get why anyone still cares about us, you know? I do know, I agreed. As someone who lost a lot to step into who I really am, I understand the fear. Don't think I'm judging you. Brodie sighed and sat up, turning his face toward the sun and closing his eyes for a minute before opening them again and grinning at me. Too damn serious for such a beautiful day, he said. He got up and walked over to the steering wheel again, turning the engine on and heading further out. Let's find some sharks. That sounded good to me. The conversation had gotten way too serious for a second date. We both seemed to want to have some fun, and if things between us progressed, there would be plenty of time for heavy talks later. Right now, I was on a boat with a hot guy on a sunny Saturday. That was all I wanted to think about. 8. Brodie. We rode around for a few hours, but unfortunately I couldn't locate any sharks for Gabe. I'd wanted to show him something magical, but the ocean just wasn't cooperating. Around 1 o'clock, we stopped the boat again, and I grabbed some sandwiches from the kitchen, which we ate while reclining on the deck together. It was so nice to just hang out with Gabe, and it was even better that way out in the middle of nowhere. I could just be with him, accept small touches and light kisses, not to mention the spectacular blowjob he'd surprised me with. I could really get used to spending time with him. He was funny and smart and cute, all the things that you'd want in a boyfriend. The thought surprised me, and Gabe must have noticed me physically jump because he turned to me with his brows furrowed. You all right? He asked. Yeah, I answered with a chuckle. Must have gotten a chill or something. Well, it's 80 degrees, he teased. Makes sense. Do you need me to come over there and warm you up? My cock twitched in interest at his words, and I smiled at him. He got up and walked over to me, straddling my hips, then lowering his body over mine, pressing our bare chests together as his mouth claimed mine. I skimmed my hands up his sides, holding him against me while our tongues slowly slid together. My dick was rock hard now, and I could feel his erection growing against me as well. Are you a pitcher or a catcher? He whispered. Switch hitter, I admitted. He purred, placing another soft kiss to my mouth. Another baseball term I recognize. Does this yacht come with lube? I slapped his ass and pushed, urging him to get up so I could stand. I took his hand and led to the bedroom, then pushed him down on the mattress and climbed over him, settling my hips between his thighs as I kissed him again. He canted up into me, rubbing our erections together, creating delicious friction that made me moan into his mouth. It had been so long since I'd been with anyone, I'd almost forgotten how good it felt to be over or under the weight of a man. Gabe's body was tight and firm and warm, hard planes of smooth skin everywhere my hands roamed. It was heaven, and I just wanted to lose myself in the sensations Gabe was giving me. God, I want you, Gabe groaned, his nails lightly dragging up my back. I want you inside of me, right now. I rolled off of him and dug around in the nightstand, pulling out a tube of lubricant. We both shucked off our swim trunks, then I crawled over him again, pinning him to the bed with my body while I reclaimed his lips. I slid down his body, trailing my tongue over his skin, the salty taste and musky smell of his sweat flooding my senses and making my balls tighten. Spreading his thighs apart, I opened the lube and squeezed a generous amount on my fingers before gripping his shaft in my slick hand and pumping him firmly. Gabe cried out, his hips jerking upward and his teeth sinking into his lower lip as he stared down at me with wide eyes. I switched hands, continuing to jack him slowly as I moved a finger over his balls and down the crack of his ass. As I circled his entrance, Gabe writhed under me, pressing his body down as if trying to force me to enter him. I pushed forward, the tight heat of his ass closing around my finger, causing both of us to shudder. I found a rhythm quickly, pumping inside of him as I continued to slide my hand up and down his thick shaft. When I added a second digit, spreading him open further, he screamed, fingers curling into the bedsheets beneath him as his release caused his body to spasm, thick streams of cum spurting up his chest. I grabbed the lube again, applying more to my hand, then coating my aching erection with it. Shifting between his legs again, I pushed his knees up and positioned the tip of my cock at his entrance. When I hesitated, Gabe's eyes opened again and he stared up at me, then nodded, silently giving me the permission he understood I was asking for. Sliding forward inside of him, feeling his muscles spasm around my shaft was almost enough to push me into my own orgasm. He felt so fucking good, so hot and slick and ready, wanting. It was intoxicating. I tried to move slowly, tried to give his body time to accommodate my girth, but I was too overwhelmed with need for him to hold back for long. Gabe moved his legs, resting them on my shoulders and rocking downward to meet my thrusts. I slammed forward, hard and fast, claiming him completely. Mine, I growled, grasping his hands in mine and holding him down, my hips rocketing against his ass. Mine, mine, mine. Gabe threw his head back, his cock growing hard again, pre-cum leaking from his tip. I watched the glistening drops hit his stomach, knew he was hard again because of me, and the sight of it pushed me over the edge. My cock jerked hard inside of him, my release spilling deep into his body as I cried out his name, my grip on his hands tightening further until I collapsed on top of his body. Every muscle in my body contracting once, then releasing, and I melted into him. Our arms wrapping around each other as I blindly searched for his lips, unable to open my eyes. You want me to get that? I murmured against his cheek, reaching between us to fondle his cock. No thanks, he whispered. I like it. I like you, I admitted. I like you too, Brodie, he said. I like you a lot. We lay together for a while, the sound and motion of the ocean rocking the boat causing both of us to doze a little. Finally, though, we untangled, and I took him to the bathroom to shower before we headed up to go back to the marina. I had a great time today, Gabe said as we gathered our gear and stepped onto the dock. So did I agreed. I have games all week, but I'd like to see you sometime. Well, I rarely leave the apartment, he admitted, so just hit me up anytime you want to come over. Anytime? Yeah, he smiled. Even the middle of the night. I'm flexible. Yes, you are, I teased. We walked to the parking lot together and stood at his car for a minute, staring at each other. If I weren't an absolute coward, I would have kissed him goodbye. But there were too many people milling around and I just couldn't. See you later, Brodie, he said, nodding as if he understood my internal struggle. Later, Gabe. I turned and headed for my own car, disappointed in myself. I really did like him, and I was already hoping that this was going to go somewhere. But could we get there if I was too scared to publicly acknowledge the truth about myself? Gabe deserved to be more than my dirty little secret. I had a feeling he deserved everything I had to give him. I just didn't know if I was going to be enough for him. 9. Gabe. I'm sorry, Court said. His glass paused halfway to his lips as he stared across the table from me. You're dating Brodie Jackson? Shh, I hissed, looking around to make sure no one had overheard him. That's what I said. So after he hit you in the face with a baseball, and you asked him to go for a drink while you were totally high. Yeah, I agreed. It was a date. And then we had a second date and a third, and now it's been like 2 months of dates and we're still going strong. Well, they were sort of like dates anyway. We still hadn't gone anywhere together in public since our first drink together, but it didn't bother me that much. I just wanted to spend time with him. It didn't matter where we did that. That's incredible, Court said. I never would have guessed he was gay. Why? Because he plays sports? I rolled my eyes. You're aware he's not the only one, right? No, I know that. I'm aware that your sexual orientation has nothing to do with your skill set. I don't know about that, I challenged. I bet I'm better at sucking dick than you are. I heard the sound of someone trying to suppress a laugh and looked up to see our waitress valiantly trying to keep a straight face, though her eyes were sparkling as she met my gaze. Can I get you boys anything else? She asked. Another mimosa, please, I said, grinning back at her. And another beer for the breeder. I hate when you call me that, Court grumbled. Because you haven't bred yet? You'll get there. Keep practicing. I'll be back with your drinks, the waitress said, giggling as she walked away. Anyway, I said, don't say anything, okay? He isn't ready for anyone to know. Why did you tell me? Court asked. Are you going to run to the National Enquirer and out him? I huffed out an exasperated breath. Because you're my best friend and I trust you. Is this going to be enough for you? He asked. You went through a lot coming out. Can you just pretend with this guy? I like him, I said. I think I'd put up with a lot as long as I get to see him. I don't expect you to understand, but your support would be nice. You've got a sugar daddy. What's not to support? Court smiled, and I knew he was kidding. Using humor to deflect pretty much everything was a family tradition. Speak of the devil, I said, glancing at my phone to see a text from Brodie. Just got back from Baltimore. Dinner tonight? I grinned and confirmed that would be great, asking if he wanted to come to my place or if I was finally going to see his. I thought we'd go out. What's the matter? Court asked. Everything okay? Yeah. I looked up at him, surprised. Why? You look shocked. I don't know. All the blood just drained from your face. I wanted to make sure you weren't about to pass out. I'm good, I promised him. Just confused. I wanted to ask Brodie if he were sure, but instead I just asked him where he wanted to meet. If he was ready to try going out in public, I wasn't going to argue. Giametti's. I'll meet you at 6. I confirmed that would be great and put my phone away again when the waitress returned with our drinks. Without a word, I picked up my fresh mimosa and drained it in one long pull. Another, I said. Sure thing, she agreed. You sure you're okay? Court asked. Peachy keen. I shook my head. We're going out tonight. In public. Like a normal couple. I had no idea what had made Brodie want to take this step, but I really hoped that he hadn't been hit in the head with a baseball on his trip. 10. Brodie. After a long discussion with my agent, I'd advised him that I would no longer be accepting his advice about my love life. Gabe and I had been seeing each other for a couple months, and I was tired of hiding it. I was falling in love with him, and I wanted to know what it was like to just be happy and not have to pretend. I knew I'd blindsided Gabe when I asked him to go out with me, but he hadn't argued, and I took that as a good sign. I still wasn't sure what I was going to tell people, but I was past caring. The teammates I'd confided in had all agreed that I should be myself and the world could deal with it. So I stood in the lobby of Giametti's, pacing nervously as I waited for Gabe. I didn't know why I was so flustered. 2 guys could have dinner together. It wasn't like I was going to fuck him on the table for the whole world to see. Hey! Hey! I turned around and smiled as I raked my gaze Gabe. Wow. Yeah. He chuckled as he smoothed his hand down the front of his suit jacket. I clean up all right, huh? He was wearing a black blazer and dress pants with a Rolling Stones t-shirt. You look amazing, I assured him. Then I leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Ready to eat? He looked like I'd just hit him with another baseball. His eyes widened, comically large, and he looked around as if making sure no one had seen. Are you okay? he whispered. I'm fine. I shrugged and forced myself to relax. Come on. We walked up to the hostess booth and the woman showed us to our table. If she'd seen me kiss him, she hadn't reacted at all. What's going on? Gabe asked, ignoring his menu as he stared at me across the table. I can't take my boyfriend out to dinner? I asked. Again, his eyes went wide, and he slowly shook his head, his mouth opening and closing a few times before he finally actually spoke. Boyfriend? Oh, well, yeah. I know we haven't really discussed labels or anything, but we've been exclusively dating for months now. I kind of assumed you felt the same way. I tried to act nonchalant as I said it, but inside my guts were churning. Maybe I'd misread our situation? Did you hit your head today? No, I insisted. Look, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I realized that I've been very unfair to you. I haven't asked you for anything, he said quickly. You know I understand, and I'm fine with the way things have been. I know that, I assured him. But I'm not. I want more, and you deserve more. The waiter walked up and we ordered drinks, but asked for a few more minutes with the menu. When I looked back at Gabe, his head was tilted, and his gaze was raking over my face. You didn't shave, he said suddenly, as if he'd just noticed. No, I agreed, scrubbing a hand over the stubble on my face. Can't. You made the playoffs? He said excitedly. Congratulations! You still don't pay any attention to what I do you? Do you know what the Tokyo markets did last night? Fair point, I said with a laugh. We stay out of each other's jobs. Got it. I smiled at him. You should pick something to eat before the waiter comes back. He snatched his menu from the table and brought it up in front of his face. I wasn't sure if he was angry with me or just confused about my decision to go out in public with him. Or maybe he didn't actually want to put labels on our relationship, and I'd just stuck my foot in my mouth. I was about to ask him when the waiter returned once more. We placed our orders, and when we were left alone again, we both started speaking at once. I'm sorry, I started. I don't know what... We both laughed, and I motioned for him to go first. I don't know what prompted this. He gestured vaguely around with his hand. But it wasn't necessary. I'm okay with how things have been going. I thought I was too, I agreed. But the last few weeks especially, it seems like I'm hiding you. And I don't want to hide you. Don't want to hide what we have, or what I thought we had. Thought we had? Maybe I'm overstepping, I admitted. Like I said, I know we haven't talked about it, and maybe you were just looking for something casual, but I really like you, and I thought this was something more. I'd been about to admit that I loved him, but if he were having issues just being my boyfriend, I didn't need to confuse the situation further for him. You doofus, Gabe said, laughing softly. I am your boyfriend. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I don't want to make you feel like I won't be if you don't waltz out of the closet. I'm here, as long as you need me to be here. Well, I'd like you around for a really long time, I told him. And I want to be able to talk about you and show you off and tell people how important you are to me. I'm so sick of protecting everyone else's feelings while hiding my own. That's a good step, Gabe said. The first big one. Well, I guess the second. What's the first? The first involves anatomy and crushing body parts together, he said. Trust me, you've already figured the first part out. Oh, yeah. I nodded, then reached across the table and covered his hand with mine. I've already told my agent that I'll be talking to team management tomorrow. I don't have any plans to make an announcement or anything, but I'm done pretending to be something I'm not. He flipped his hand and laced his fingers with mine. You know you can't go backward. I only want to move forward, I promised him. Are you ready for me to do this? What do you mean? Well, once it breaks, your face is going to be all over the news. People will photograph us and probably say some pretty nasty stuff. I shrugged. I don't want to make things difficult for you. Let me worry about me, he insisted, pulling his hand away to pick up his drink and take a sip. There's nothing the world can say about me that I haven't already heard from my own family. He told me about coming out to his parents, and it had made me sick. My own family had been great about it, but Gabe's father had lost his mind, saying terrible things, and his mother had pretty much shut down. It had sounded horribly painful and was part of the reason I was worried about the backlash he'd receive from people who didn't approve of us. He'd lived through enough trauma. I didn't need to cause him any more pain. Our food arrived and we ate in comfortable silence. I did notice a few people turning to stare at us, but nobody approached. It was a higher-end restaurant, which was why I picked it. We were less likely to be interrupted since the people who dined here weren't impressed by much. Do you want dessert? I asked Gabe after the waiter returned to clear our plates. What were you going to say earlier? He said, ignoring my question. You started to say something, then changed it. I could tell. Well, damn it. He was way too perceptive for his own good. I knew he was talking about when I almost told him I loved him. Tell me, he insisted. He was smiling slightly, and I wondered if he already knew. I was going to say that I love you, I said. Thank God. I love you too. I thought you were never going to say it. You do? I stared at him, a little shocked at how casually he'd said it back. Of course I do, he said, probably for a little longer than I should have. You make me really, really happy, Brodie Jackson. Well, I'm glad, because that's all I want to do. You really going to grow a beard? He wrinkled his nose. Hopefully, I said, but it's a long road to the big series. You'll get there. You don't know anything about baseball, I reminded him, accepting the check from the waiter and handing him my credit card. He's right, sir, the waiter said, giving me a small wink. You're going to win. Thank you, Gabe said, nodding to the man. See? Well, if you both say so, I guess it's a guarantee. Deep down, I knew he was right. Everything had been falling into place when I met Gabe. He was my good luck charm. And with him by my side, I knew I could accomplish anything. Coming out to the world, winning a championship, falling in love. It was all perfect. Just like my boyfriend. Epilogue. Gabe. 6 months later. Brodie coming out publicly wasn't quite the scandal he'd predicted. Pretty much no one cared, especially when the Cougars won their championship. We'd spent his off-season moving in together and declining offers to make our love story into a movie. Now he was getting ready for spring training, and we were spending one last day out on the boat before I lost him to ice baths and batting practice. Hey, babe. I turned around to find Brodie across the deck from me, his hand poised as if to toss me something. I reached up and watched the small box sail past my hand and out over the water. What the fuck was that? I yelled, staring down into the water with a knot in my chest. Did you just throw what I think you threw? Past my head into the ocean? I spun around and found him behind me, on one knee with a ring in his hand and a wide grin on his face. As if I'd risk trusting you to catch anything, he teased. Gabriel Williams, I love you. I love everything about you, including your inability to perform any athletic feat put in front of you. Will you marry me? Well, of course I'll marry you, I said, snatching the ring out of his hand. But I'm going to be angry at you for a minute. He stood up and pulled me into his arms, kissing me softly as a chuckle rumbled through his chest. I suppose that's fair. I love you. I love you too, I said. That wasn't funny. That was hysterical. I hadn't known he was going to propose, but I'd known what it was the moment it sailed past me. Maybe it would be funny later. Are these the kinds of shenanigans I should expect from you for the rest of our lives? Probably, he agreed. You game? Oh, yeah. I finally smiled. Yeah, I'm game. This has been Out of Left Field by Dakota Rebel. Read for you by Wesley Paul.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, lady listeners. Thank you so much to Dakota Rebel for bringing us Out of Left Field. Super excited to have it. Thanks for coming. And next week, we have Abby Knox with Reckless in Ruins. So can't wait to share that with you guys. There's a dude with a kilt on the cover, and I'm just like, okay, I'm in. All right, that's everything.
Tell them what to do.
Fuck your day up. Make sure you're a bitch. Don't be a dick.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Read me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. You could take a look in a book, that's fine. Or you could sit back, relax, and unwind and read